cross my heart and hope to die.
Hey, what's going on, guys? So, Brian from Simpleman's Comics, new live stream tonight. Storms are all over the place, so we hope the rain doesn't, I won't say rain us out, but hope no technical difficulties with thunderstorms, anything like that. It is summer. Anyone that's joined the live stream, welcome. Happy to have you. And I also have special guest who needs no introduction. He's been here before. And I have CBSI Instagram, Jack DeMeo.
What's going on, CBSI Nation, IG Comic Family? How's everybody doing?
We got Comer Lover Omega is ready to rumble.
Let's see. There we go.
Gomez Comic Collector's in the house. What's going on? You all right, Jack?
Yeah, I was getting the YouTube feedback.
Oh,
so I was like, oh, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, I've been there before. That's the flip side, guys.
Yeah, I was like, let's shut that down right from the get-go.
How are we sounding out there on YouTube? I mean, we can't really hear the YouTube playback, so is the audio good, the video good? Let us know. I'm not a big techie guy. I'm just pushing some buttons, hoping, praying. So, anyways, Queen of Variants, welcome. Cat Ren Figures, welcome. We got people rolling in. This is awesome. I mean, I'm really excited. So, we will say that we do have a giveaway for tonight, and Ben C. from CBSI has been gracious enough to give us a copy of the Fan Expo Boston Humberto Ramos Amazing Spider-Man variant. So we will be giving that away at the end of the night. Well, I say end of the night. This isn't going to go all night. But we will be giving that away, so stay tuned. It's going to be real easy. It's going to be a trivia question that isn't going to be hard to answer. So we'll get to it in a little bit. Anyhow, to the topic of tonight's stream. Jack DeMeo and I were talking, and we noticed polarizing conversations between comic exclusive store variants. Some people are upset, some people love them. So we were like, hey, let's get a stream together and let's have a discussion about objectively looking at comic store exclusive variants. So Jack was cool about it, and here we are. And this isn't just a discussion between Jack and I. Everyone in the chat, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. But
absolutely.
So, Jack, you're the guest. Is there anything that you would like to say about store exclusives?
Well, I think that since I came into comics and speculation, I don't think there's been a topic that has been more, you said polarizing, I'll say divisive than store exclusives. It's kind of put people on one side or the other. Excuse me. And it has kind of been a topic of conversation almost in every form of comic community, all over the internet, in comic shops. How do you handle them from a retail perspective? How do speculators handle them? It's all over the place. So what I hope to be able to do is kind of talk about, you know, it's kind of what the title says, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between.
Right. So I will preface this conversation by saying everything that I speak is from my opinion alone. I don't speak on the behalf of anyone. I don't speak on the behalf of CBSI. I speak on the behalf of Simpleman's Comics, I guess you can say. I think Jack is the same way.
Absolutely.
I don't want to sit here and make it sound like, hey, we're about to unload a bunch of bad crap, because we're not.
Right, because no, that's not it at all.
So I will start by saying I look at it from 3 different point of views. I look at it from a collector point of view. I look at it from the speculator point of view. And then I try to look at it from the actual store, retailer that's having the comic created to sell, right? So when I look at it, and it's weird because I try to be, first of all, my number one commandment's always buy what you like.
Yep.
I mean, if you buy something you don't like just because you think you're going to flip it, toss it, whatever, then you're halfway losing already, because if it tanks, you're left holding something you don't want. But from the collector in me, I'm all about store exclusive variants, because the more the merrier. There's really great covers out there. Depending on, I mean, there's Matina, there's Perillo. You're seeing a whole bunch of, at the time, you were seeing artists doing store exclusives that weren't doing very many regular covers for like the actual publishers.
They've actually put
Marvel wasn't putting them out. They were usually coming. There was a Marvel comic or a DC comic, but it was coming from a store that was having the artist do the cover for them. But from the collector point of view, I'm all about that, because if I don't like it, I'm not going to buy it. So outside of that, I have no concern whatsoever. But then I find myself crossing that line every now and then because, hey, I really like that incentive variant from whatever store. But then you hear that I also like this 1 in 25 or 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 of the whatever the actual cover is from the publisher. And they're not cheap. I mean, usually the ratio is usually about the dollar amount, if not higher, right? A 1 in 25 is kind of around $25, 1 in 50, so on and so on. So where the gray area and where the frustration comes from sometimes is you're paying $50 for a 1 in 50, but then you find out, and I don't know how true this is just from what I've heard, that the stores that do exclusives, those exclusives qualify for those ratio variants.
It's true.
So having said that, that's where I kind of, sometimes you get the gray area and get frustration, because I'm like, hey, I just shelled out $50, but now it's not worth as much because there's that many more of them, because the store exclusives are qualifying, so there's going to be a higher print run. So then that's when I usually smack myself in the face and say, hey, buy what you like, don't worry about it. If that's how you feel, then don't spend the $50 and get it. So sometimes I find myself passing up on covers that I do like because I don't want to spend the money for it. And then the other side of it is if I own my own brick and mortar or own my own comic store and people are going to buy them, supply and demand, if people are demanding them, by all means, I'm definitely going to commission an artist to do a cover. And I'm not on the inside of the industry, so I couldn't tell you what they pay, any of that type stuff. But if people are buying them and I can make money off them, I'm going to keep doing it until the demand goes away. So that's kind of my big summary of it, which I feel like I'm just jabbering now, but I'll let you kind of go on from here, Jack.
Well, first you got to understand a little bit about my background. I actually went to college for retail management. So I've been a retailer all my life. And it's something that is very important to me. I always tell people, like, I'm a retailer, because I try to separate myself from that perception of, oh, you're the mall manager or this, that, or the third. So I do understand, having worked in retail my entire adult life, the pressures that especially a small business retailer is under, to meet bills and to constantly kind of innovate in a changing market. And so I totally get why an exclusive store variant sold at your shop for your customers is extremely valuable, and why you would want to do that. I also agree that store variants have provided us with incredible artwork. Artists and access to artists we maybe wouldn't have gotten otherwise. I look at somebody like, and I'm probably going to butcher his last name, but Perillo, and store variants really put him on. The success he had with store variants, I think Clayton Crane's another one. While he had great artwork before store variants, a lot of the store variants that he had, the popularity really kind of put him on. So I totally get from a retailer perspective why a retailer would want to get involved with the program. If I had a store open tomorrow, I would probably have store variants. Having said that, like you said, you come from the other side. There's the spec perspective. As a speculator, I don't speculate on store variants. I avoid it altogether. That's just a decision that I made, like most speculators, through trial and error, making mistakes. I will buy store variants for resale if I can get them on a clearance sale. Like Midtown recently had a 75% off clearance sale. They had some J. Scott Campbell covers. If I can buy them for $2, $3, $4, and you can resell them for $15, $20, whether on eBay or at conventions, I'm totally cool with that. But I just don't speculate on store variants. I don't buy them because at the buy-in price, it becomes too risky, I feel like, and it's not something I want to do. Having said that, it's not also something I want to necessarily rant about like a lot of people do. So I think that that's kind of where that balance comes in, is trying to understand both sides. Life's about perspective.
Right. I think sometimes there's the little kid in me where you like want everything and your parents are like, no, you have a $5 allowance.
Right. So as a collector, that's tough.
There's the other side of me where I'm like, ooh, I like this regular cover, but ooh, I like this store variant, but ooh. And then I'm like, well, I got $5. But I never have one straight way of thinking about it. Like I said, there's the collector side. I kind of stray. I won't even say from the speculator side, but it's just I get frustrated because that's hypocrite because it is kind of speculator side. But Marvel already has 12 covers for their own, and then there's 15 different store variants on top of it, and you might like six of them, but you're not going to buy. I think sometimes I don't buy any. Usually once they get past a certain amount of covers, even if I like something, I don't really buy it because I don't, unless it's an artist that I truly collect. But if it's something like, oh, that cover's kind of cool, but the artist isn't like, oh, I love that artist, then I usually don't buy anything. And I think one thing that spiked up that's starting to scale back down was there was no, hey, here's a store variant. It was always, hey, here's a set of 3. This is a print run of this, and this is a print run of this. And for a while, you could buy one or the other, or the set of 3. And then at one time, they went to where, hey, you have to buy the set of 3. And it just got to where I'm like, well, I'm not gonna buy it. But that's just that's my money. I don't have anything against them selling it.
Right.
It's just my personal opinion where I'm not gonna buy a set of 3 comics to get the one cover I like.
Well, and that's where store variants have changed. I've been back in comics now for about 6 years, and just in the time that I've been back, it's been amazing to watch the change in how store variants are released. Like I said, from a base concept idea of an exclusive variant for your store and your customers, I love that. From the idea of access to all these artwork and choices for the customer. So I get what you're saying. As a collector, we want it all, but you can choose which cover you want for your book. I'm cool with that. But where things have gotten out of hand was where you've got the Virgin covers and the foil covers and the 8 cover sets, and you have the cover. At the end of the day, whatever the rarest cover is, that's the one everyone chases. So every cover that comes up under that ends up almost getting devalued. And I feel like that's what we're seeing with trade dress variants, where the Virgin covers devalue the trade dress, and they're being bundled by stores in an effort to sell however many trade dresses they need to reach profitability. And then once they're doing that, they feel good. They feel like they've made their money. And the remaining trade dresses, a lot of them sit in stock for a while, and we're not seeing those sell out as much. So, that's kind of, for me, that you lose your taste in it, where you're talking about buying, like you said, multi-book sets, buy-ins at $69.99, $79.99, etc. That gets kind of crazy and out of hand for what the initial thought process of the program was, let alone before we talk about, like you said, the ratio variance being attached to it, which has changed the game for us speculators and secondary market guys.
So yeah, and real quick, we're starting to get people strolling in here. This is freaking awesome. So I want to just do a quick couple shout outs. We got Justin T. Welcome to the stream, buddy. We got Lord Tatman, who I misspelled and said Tommen. Catren Figures, welcome. We have, I'm not going to butcher names, so I'm going to cut some of it off. I'm just going to say Comic Bro. We got Tim Mungeon. Welcome everybody to the stream. We are talking store exclusive variants. We can talk somewhat outside of that, but we kind of like to keep it scared of that. We want a group chat going, so if you guys we'll try. I'll try to pay more attention to the chat, also cover some questions. And I did see back there in the chat before someone was mentioning about how DC's been doing their cover Bs, and they haven't had a whole lot. I mean, I've been loving that. And it's weird because when Rebirth first came out and they were doing the cover Bs, a lot of stores weren't ordering it. So like I was picking up a lot of cover Bs, and then I noticed DC started getting, I mean, I won't say start, because when they kicked off, they had some big artists doing the cover Bs. Like Neil Adams is doing Arrow. I mean, I'm drawing a blank on others. But I noticed since then, they had some of like the big art germs.
Well, you can tell they're watching the secondary market because they've switched from that like focus on Neil Adams, Mike Grell, and the classic artists to Matina, and Hughes, and all these guys who the secondary market is chasing, and then there's new ones building like Middleton through the program, and so on and so forth.
Right. So, and then, of course, and then all of a sudden, I mean, Josh Middleton's been around for a while, good while, and then, but his covers lately, it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of blown up. A lot of people are buying them. I noticed my local comic book store, which Third Eye Comics, when I first going to Rebirth, or even when that shift first started switching with the art germs and the Matinas and all that, they would get like, there was a couple people that had a pool list where that's what they got, all cover Bs, and then the shop maybe ordered like 1 or 2 copies more. So if you weren't there when it opened, you weren't getting one unless the bigger store up in Annapolis, they would call up there and they're like, okay, we have one available, we'll bring it down to you. I'm like, all right, cool. So now I just start, if there's something that I want, they order more copies of the cover Bs, but I still will usually email them, say, hey, this is coming out next week, can you hold me a copy? So,
I think most stores are still coming up short a lot of times on the DC cover Bs. I think they're hip to the Middleton thing, so I think the next several Middleton variants, you'll probably see stores order them kind of appropriately. Which is also why you've seen the secondary market prices be a little less maybe on like the Mera Aquaman 39 than say the Batgirl one was from a few covers ago, and why the Batgirl covers have gone down a bit. It's just availability and demand. But I agree that the DC program has it right. They've got it, where it's accessible, it's affordable buy-ins. But they also have been doing some store variants. They just hold it for select events like Batman 50 and things like that.
And not only the cover Bs, but since they switched to that like semi-almost virgin.
Right,
photos, it's like freaking, it's like a movie poster, gorgeous. But,
right, because like earlier when I said I don't like virgins, that's a loaded statement. But I like virgin covers like most comic book fans. I just think that the way virgin covers are used as store exclusive variants, they're used as kind of bait. I love the way DC does it, the way they're put out, because if you're going to bring in some of the heavy hitting artists, you want to feature that artwork, and that's what dropping the big trade dress. I went back and looked the other day when I was pulling out some of my early Middleton variants to see at some point these are probably going to start popping. It's amazing how much that Rebirth trade dress takes away from the variants. And not having that now makes a huge difference.
Right. So another thing, I don't want to say, yeah, I guess you could say I'm kind of hypocritical, because when I say, hey, I'm collector and buy what I like. But then I find myself not disgruntled, but getting, what do you say? I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, like your parents say to you, is the saturation of artists on the store exclusives, right? So for a while there, Matina, outside of Spider-Man 2099 and some other smaller titles, he wasn't doing a lot of big titles. And so credit to the stores, because I won't say they got him noticed, because he was well noticed before, but it seemed like store exclusives started doing more Matinas, more Delados, and then they just kind of started picking artists that were getting more how's the right way to say this? They were being noticed more by the secondary market, and then they started using them to do store exclusive variants. So at first, when they first started doing it, like the Venoms and a couple other covers, you're like, oh man, that's gorgeous, freaking Delado. But then like every other store, every other title, there's a Delado store exclusive, or a Matina, or a Perillo. I say Perillo, you say Perillo.
I have no idea which one of us is right. Yeah, probably you.
There's no shame, and everyone should know, if they listen to my weekly picks, that I suck at pronouncing names. I'm just gonna start calling everyone Jerry or Bob or Robert. But so yeah, but I still, even though there's a part of me that's like, oh man, that's getting saturated. If there's a cover that I'm like, man, that's freaking gorgeous, I'll get the trade dress for the $10 or whatever, and then just throw it in my collection. But I understand the side of people where they're like, well, at first if you got a Venom or a Matina, and so like, not to cut it short, but a good example would be the Aspen Batman, right? Remember the Batman Michael Turner cover that came out of nowhere, and people were like, it just like jumped up there on the secondary market. Yep. And then Aspen started putting out like Harley Quinn covers. Versions. Yeah, it's like they took a good thing and then ran with it, which I don't have a fault with them, because that's what they do, right? They're in the business to make money. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, if anyone that bought the Batman for what the prices were going for, or if they didn't, or even if you were getting in early on some of the other pre-orders, because they started announcing, hey, we're going to do pre-orders for this cover, all these other Michael Turner covers, and everyone thought, oh, it's the next Batman. Or they start buying up all this stuff, and they just kind of get saturated. But one good thing that comes out of that is usually if you get, I won't say burned, but if you get left holding, or you lose some money, you learn from it. So next time you're like, hey, I'm stuffing this one out. But so it's very hard, because I don't want to sit there and say, well, I don't care, because obviously I do care at some point, but I don't want, it's not the end of the world. There's other comics. One thing I started finding myself doing is, if that's drawing attention, try to find a niche in the market where there is an attention that might, because one thing I've noticed from comics is it's cyclical, right? It always comes back around to something. So when everyone's attention is focused on whatever, try to find something else, do some research, dig in that. And if you're buying what you like anyways, even if it doesn't work out, you still have something in your PC. And it's usually cheaper because the attention's not on it right now.
And if you're buying what you like, you're probably going to be better at it, because you actually know something about what you're buying. If you have passion for it, if it's something you're interested in, you're probably going to be more likely to get that right.
Right. So, for those that have been coming into the chat, I announced at the beginning that we will be having a giveaway courtesy of Ben C., who's the owner of the comicbookinvest.com website. We will be giving away a copy of the Humberto Ramos Fan Expo Boston variant. So he's donated a copy of that to give away. It's going to be a real easy trivia question. I think everyone in here sees it enough to, once I ask the question, we'll be able to answer it. So it's going to be lightning round too, because whoever answers the correct first is going to win the variant. So I figure we're talking exclusive variants. We're going to offer one up.
There you go.
But
we talked earlier about the ratios and how it affects the ratio variance. I think that that's an example of what you were talking about making. You got to make a mistake sometimes and adjust. And I'll give you an example. I got burned holding some ratio variance several months ago. I had pre-ordered some of the stuff with Venom and some of the Amazing Spider-Man 798 stuff. Was real happy that I had gotten in pre-orders at the prices I had gotten them in at. And then when the flood of issues hit, no matter how long you've been doing this, you can still get every now and again kind of caught sitting there. And I got caught sitting there looking at it like, wow, I'm going to lose some money on this. And while that was, while I could be mad, it's my fault at the end of the day, because that's the way the market is moving, is with the stores that are producing store variants getting ratios off the store variants. It goes to common sense that the more store variants are produced for a title, the higher the print run is going to be. The higher the print run is going to be, the more ratio variants are going to exist in the market. The more they exist in the market, the lower the initial price is going to be, and the tougher it's going to be for you to make money immediately. And it took me happening to take that loss. Luckily, I feel good that, like, we're talking Amazing Spider-Man, we're talking Venom, they'll rebound. But I had to take that loss for me to sit back and go, okay, new strategy now. I can't do that. I'm gonna sit out Cosmic Ghost Rider. I'm not gonna go pre-order variants for Cosmic Ghost Rider because I already see what's happening. And being able to make that adjustment is beneficial. I'll give you a little something from IG, a cbsi Bolo. Look at the stores that sell store variants, because a lot of them, they get a lot of ratios, and they have this pressure to recoup the money that they're investing on ordering so many copies. And a lot of them offer bundles of the ratio variants cheap enough that even at depressed prices you can buy in and buy them cheap enough. I did that even with Venom #1. After having lost money, I went and bought more from Frankie's when they put their bundles out, because the buy-in price was just too low for me not to go. We're talking like a 1 in 100, a 1 in 50, a 1 in 25, and a store exclusive for like 50. So at that price, I'll hedge against some of the losses I have at closer to ratio. But that's what it's all about. It's all about making a mistake and adjusting. And we can sit here and complain about the way the market is. Marvel's not going to stop doing it. Stores are not going to stop doing it because of all the benefits that we made. So us as secondary market speculators, we've got to adjust to the changing market and find a way to kind of go in. And I 100% agree with what you said about finding your own niche. And that's the big adjustment that I've had to make, is what is something in some areas that I can focus on where these market changes and trends and floods aren't going to affect me. And I've done that with looking at certain properties like that IDW releases, or cartoon properties, or things like that, and made good money doing that. And it's you're less flooded, less saturated. And so it's all about finding that groove and that niche and trying things and adjusting when things don't work. And like you said, CBSI motto, your motto, always buy what you like. And if you do that, you've got that hedge.
Right. So one store variant that came out, I don't know, a couple years ago that didn't do too well, but I still bought it and I love the cover, was it the Frankie's, the group of stores, and they had the Delado, the Ghost Rider #1, right, with the like hair on fire coming out the car. It didn't do that great on the secondary market, but I love the cover, and that's one I'm glad I bought. But I think another thing is, upset or whatever that we might be, we should also be appreciative of the fact that comic market as a whole is doing well enough to where people are buying these books.
Right.
I think it's going to have a cycle, and eventually I think I don't know. My personal opinion, I think it's starting to cycle down a little bit and it's going to calm down. But, I mean, you got to be pretty happy as a comic collector that the market is good enough to where... evidently Marvel thinks it's still good because they're putting out 15 covers for a book on their own. But
right.
So, there's there's some gripes and complaints. I mean, everyone feels bad when they kind of, I won't say when they get burned or lose out, but I don't think you can take it out on the retailers for getting the variants, because I mean ultimately it's your money. I mean, if people don't buy it, eventually they're going to stop making it. But I also
that's how you voice it. Is stop buying it. If you have a problem with it, just stop buying it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray area there, so I understand that as well. But because I can sit there and say that, but then something, you know, I'll find myself frustrated over something. But I'm never to the point of like, screw those guys. Why are they making all these variants? I'm just like, damn it, I lost out on that one again. Or, you know.
Right. And I'm not trying to be negative about people that feel negative about store variants, because I totally understand it. I just think it's energy wasted to continuously push that topic the way that I see that it gets pushed, because there's just too many people benefiting from it. And at the end of the day, one thing that we kind of have to be honest with ourselves is no one cares about us from a secondary market perspective. The collector is cared about a bit more. But as far as like flippers and things like that, they don't really care if we can make our money on a product. So they're going to keep doing it. So that's just kind of where I come from, is the best thing that we can do is kind of focus our energy on, if that's going to be what's going on in the market, how can I play in the market and still be successful, and how can I adjust and whatnot. I saw someone in the comments, they mentioned comic exposure. One of the first variants I bought into when I first got store variants started coming out, and I first was getting into speculating, Spider-Gwen, I remember a couple years in, had popped off, and I went and I was jumping on every Spider-Gwen variant that was coming out, because at that time I didn't know any better, so I'm grabbing every store variant that's coming out. And I remember I was stuck holding the bag on
those Adam Hughes ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to talk about holding the bag? I was holding the bag, the Amazing Spider-Man #9 with Silk and Spider-Gwen on it. It's not even the costume Silk uses anymore. I still have those in a short box somewhere. So like, I've been there. I've sat there with covers. I've still got store variant covers, but that's where I've had to try to adjust. And now, like I said, the store variants that I buy I will buy covers for myself, because I'm an Italian American, so I like Perillo, I like Delato, I like Mattina, and I totally agree. As a fan of those artists, they've gotten totally oversaturated. It's gotten overwhelming to try to keep up with. But other than that, I will buy stuff that's on clearance. I will jump on deals and things like that. But that's mostly all that I will partake in. But I totally understand, from a collector, there's so many great products, and from a store, why they're released. But another perspective that we haven't talked about is the artists, because the artists, it's made a lot of money for them. I talked to Clayton Crane at Heroes Con, and he was glowing about the ability to work on store variants and how it's provided him with income. It's to be able to do even the different versions of the covers and things like that. So, it's tough for me as a speculator to sit and, crap on him trying to make a living. Being a starving artist, most of them are freelance. They're not under contract with this company or that company. So, the more work, the better. Unfortunately, that one of the negatives is that has led to some artists, I don't think necessarily him, but some artists being a little sloppy, or where you're getting some of the reposing and things. And I really am not a fan of the reprinted covers, or virgins for no reason, or foil for no reason.
So right, and that's another thing that you noticed that a lot of store exclusives were doing versions of like Granov covers, another thing, but then Marvel also started doing some virgin incentives, like 1-in-100s and stuff.
Right.
I feel at some point, I mean, unless you know already, if you look at it, is there a way to tell? I mean, besides maybe the back of the book might have the store logo on the back cover or something, but it's going to get to where you might not be able to tell if it's a store variant or exclusive because both are doing virgin covers.
Right.
Another thing is, I noticed some artists are taking the stores out of it. Like J. Scott Campbell, Mike Cho, a couple others now are starting to sell directly from themselves.
And then you're seeing artist management companies pop up where they're grabbing groups of artists and releasing variants for them. And that's a whole nother segment of the market that's happening. And I, again, can't blame them. As an entrepreneur, they're seeing us and everyone else make money off their artwork. They're just trying to cut the middleman out.
So, yeah. But, so, I mean, like I said, buy what you like. One thing that I buy, a lot of people hate on Zenescope. Well, I won't say hate on Zenescope, but I'm a huge Paul Green art fan, and Paul Green does a lot of their like cosplay variants. So usually I spent, I think it was $100, and I joined like Zenescope's VIP program, and you can start all your purchases. You basically rack up points, and I start earning rewards. So I spent the $100 because I found myself buying all these Paul Green covers from Zenescope's website, and the Paul Green covers, and then I'm a Disney fan, so the Disney cosplays like the Tinkerbells, the Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
That's stuff that I like. I mean, I bought it for PC. I don't really plan on flipping it, but only thing I hate about Zenescope is $10 shipping. And it's like, but so
yeah, a lot of people get you on shipping.
Yeah. Another thing that sucks is like some stores you $10 shipping, and then you get it, and right on the shipping label it's like $3.50 first class mail or something, and you're like, what the hell?
You can tell they don't have a lot of eBay experience dealing with negative feedback and things like that and customer complaints.
Right, and then like some people have ordered from some stores, some publisher stores even, like if you order from, you're like, oh man, it's a good deal, and you'll get it in the mail, and it's like, yeah, they're all crumpled up, but I mean, it's just comics. I mean,
and that's another thing to think about when you're ordering from different stores that release store variants is how are they shipping? Because some stores have varying reputations for how they're shipping, and it does affect it. And then another thing is the delays. A lot of stores are having delays because they're ordering so many books from Diamond. A lot of them are being printed at specialty print locations, and they're having issues with printing, and entire orders are being shipped back, so they're coming back late. So there's that. Nothing stinks like putting your money out for something, pre-order, and then you're already waiting a while to get it in, and then you get an email saying, oh yeah, by the way, it's going to be another month late. And while I understand that may not be the store's fault, it's another negative of that whole kind of program and business, because we're, us as customers, we're paying the money, and then the stores, they're holding our money for a period of time, and they're able to use it and benefit from it. And we're sitting here waiting on books that by the time you get them, the market may have depressed on.
Right. Sorry, I'm replying to people in chat also. So Craig Marshall asked just a quick question: do you guys like the art of Thor? I've been it's Del Mundo's doing the art, right? I think Del Mundo's doing the art right now.
Yeah. And
I've been enjoying it, but not to digress, but the Infinity War, the Infinity War Prime, freaking Mike Deodato, his art's been killing it. But yeah, I think I get for Thor. I tolerate. It's not the best art, but I think that, like Iron Cardinal says, the story's great. I think I won't say it carries the art, but it's. I don't. If the story was bad, I wouldn't deal with it as much, I guess you could say. But
I'll just say Jason Aaron's incredible.
Yeah, and I'm horrible because I don't know why. I always switch Jason Aaron and Justin Jordan up. Even though I mean one or the other, it just spews out of my mouth. I'm like, oh yeah, Justin Jordan's doing awesome, and it's like, you mean Jason Aaron? I'm like, yeah, I'm an idiot. So like I said, I'm horrible with names. But let's go through chat and try to handle some. See if there's anyone have questions in the chat that we can answer, because I don't want to roll this all night long. So kind of weeknight. People got day jobs, but if there's anyone in chat that has anything we want to bring up, we can talk about that.
Yeah, who's got a hot take? Who's got something?
Bent covers. Yeah. By Moon Knight. Yep. So
here's another one I don't like is I don't like the stores selling the graded the pre-screen 9/8 because as a customer I think I heard Sean Leggett from the Unpressable Defects, throw a little shout out to him. I heard him mention this one time and I never thought about it, but it's so true. But as a customer, when I'm buying a raw book, if I know you're pre-selecting 9/8, does that mean I'm automatically getting a 9/6 or 9/4? I've got no shot at a 9/8 because you're already pulling those out for your pre-screen. So that's another thing that I'm not a huge fan of.
Right. Unless you're one wanting to buy a 9/8 right away.
Right, which I get why you're doing that, right.
So, yeah, I see both sides, but yeah, if you want to buy a raw hoping to submit yourself, then I could see that point of view. Because I know there's a couple I bought, what is it, the Delato Iron Fist I bought a 9/8 for. Is it Comic Market Street, or it might have been I forget who I bought it from, but I bought the Natalie Sanders Vampirella 9/8 signed, and I was happy.
Okay, yeah.
I was happy with that. I don't think it was Comic Market Street. I think it was who's the one that Tyler Kirkham always does covers for?
KRS.
Yeah, I think it was KRS that I bought it from, and they're good. But in fact, when they first sent it to me, they sent me a 9/6, and I was like, "What the heck, man?" It didn't say like possibly a 9/8. It said 9/8, and they're like, "Oh
right.
Man, we're sorry. Send it. We'll send a new one to you with the shipping label. Just send us that one back." So, but Comics Most Wanted saying, "Do you think Middleton's earlier Aquaman and Batgirl variants will heat up?" I think it's a possibility, especially as people keep buying the new stuff he's releasing. They're going to go back and want to get the earlier Batgirl and Aquaman. But
right, that's one way that I've had some luck in the past. Kind of a strategy is when you see an artist take off, is to go back and get some of the slept-on artwork. So one thing I already did, and that's what I was saying earlier when I was looking at the Rebirth trade dresses, I already went and dug in my own boxes and pulled out Batman variants, Batgirl variants that Middleton did, Aquaman, because I know that at some point collectors are going to get attention to that. The same way you got people that got to have every Gronoff cover, every J. Scott cover. As more Middleton fans come into the market, there are going to be people looking for every one. So I do think so. And I also think another CBSI Bolo is you should be looking out in those dollar boxes and in those back issue bins for some of Middleton's old work. Because while you may not see immediate returns, I do think over the long haul you will see them rise, because I think his name at this point, I think he's hitting that upper echelon of cover artist popularity.
right. So Will asks, so with some artists going with Indiegogo, will their older stuff get more expensive? I think it's somewhat, I don't want to say ambiguous, but that's kind of a wide net. I think that depending on who the artist is and what their earlier work was, I don't know if he's referring to like Ethan Van Sciver. I've always loved his art. Plus, I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, so I mean Ethan Sciver's cover works and stuff and Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run, awesome. But I think, or Friesen also, but I think ultimately, if you can come down to buy what you like at the price or the risk that you're willing to take, is probably the best thing. You're going to lose out on some, but you're going to win on some too. And I know that's harder to do than say, because I find myself straying every now and then. I'm like, oh, I kind of like it, but I think that's going to be, and I buy it thinking I'm going to flip it and it dies. But I found myself lately that I haven't been buying to flip as much. I found myself, I noticed I've been lazy. I haven't been listing anything on eBay. I got like comic books all over the place. I'm like, no. They were hot last week, but now they're down. But so I don't know.
It's a timing game for sure.
Symphonic Elk, he's been buying Ben Oliver covers. Ben Oliver's awesome. There was a
I agree on him too.
yes. I almost pulled the trigger on the 9/8. What's that Green Lantern series? There's a 1 in 25, the Ben Oliver cover. Oh, I forget what.
The Lost Army.
Yes, there was a 9/8 on eBay for like, I think it was like $80, almost. I didn't see what it ended at auction. It was like a couple minutes left. And I was so close to like trying to bid on it, but then I was like, I don't really have the money to spend on that. But
I have a small stack of that book. I'm hoping for a rebound on that one.
just like was it Green Lantern 25, the Gary Frank 1 in 10.
Yep.
But so I think one, because I'm a Green Lantern fan, but I think as you get closer to, depending on how some of the future DC movies do, when they get closer to Green Lantern Corps, which evidently the movie hasn't even been totally greenlit yet, but Jeff Johns is working on the script for. But Jeff Johns says if you like his run, you'll like his script.
And that's the first thing I read when I got back into sitting down and trying to read comics again, was I read that run on Green Lantern. So I'm pumped at the idea of a movie out on that run. And I'm bullish on Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps because you got to buy stuff while it's down.
Right.
And a lot of that stuff is down. If you look at the variants from some of the earlier runs, like we talked about, I think that some of those Ethan Van Sciver covers, with his popularity kind of raising, can spike. I think some of those Ben Oliver covers. I think there's a lot of artists who did. Kirkham did covers in some of those runs. So I think there's a lot of books you can buy in that $3, $4, $5, $6 range that could spike to $15, $20 easily. Right. Just need some more attention on them. That's all.
So Poor Man's Comics put in the chat, he brought up a great Loopy Dave does those variant covers for Image Rose comics, and he said that if he does covers outside of Rose, he thinks he'll end up blowing. I agree with him, because those Loopy Dave covers, I mean, the Rose comic itself, you're not going to do much with, but those covers, man, I've been putting some in my freaking PC just because I judge the book by its cover on that, and I haven't even read I've read like issues 1 through 3, and then I just started buying some Loopy Dave covers just because I like the cover art. But so yeah, thanks for putting that in the chat. One thing also, we have multiple people in here that also have a comic book YouTube channel, so I want to give them some shout outs. And if you are watching this outside of the stream, make sure you check out their YouTube channel, like Kingpin Comics, Symphonic Elk. If you guys have YouTube channels, give a shout out in here real quick so I can make sure you guys get Cat Ren Figures. Awesome channels, guys. If you like comic book hauls, I mean, they're in there doing reviews. Give them some love, but definitely want to make sure they get recognized. But with that being said, Jack, do you have anything else about variants before we start do this giveaway?
No, I think we touched on everything. Just make sure you're buying what you like, and make sure you're paying attention to where the market's going, so you can kind of adjust and go with the flow and find a strategy that works for you. Try new things.
All right. So we are getting ready to, as we said before, we're going to give away this Amazing Spider-Man #1 Humberto Ramos Fan Expo Boston variant, which was donated to us by comicbookinvest.com. And first person to answer this question, which is, like I said, it's not a hard question, but since it's
get those fingers ready.
Yeah, get ready to type. I need the month and the year. All right, since we're talking Amazing Spider-Man, give me the month and year that Amazing Fantasy 15 was published, and the first person to put it in the chat will win this comic. What we got? See what we got
Who's
coming?
got it?
If you see it, let me know. I'm looking also. We got people Googling.
Uh-oh, we got some answers coming in.
Oh, Morpheus Dream. Morpheus Dream. It was August of 1962. And Jack, do me a favor. You Google yourself just to make sure that I'm right. But I'm saying August of 1962.
Correct, August 10th, 1962.
All right. Let me make sure Morpheus is the first one. Do you see anyone outside of Morpheus Dream who before him?
I don't.
All right. So Morpheus Dream. We're going to get you this comic. Hey, do me a favor. Email me at simplemanscomics@gmail.com. Give me your name and mailing address. This will be coming from Ben C. himself. I don't have the book. He donated it. He'll be shipping it out to you. But with that being said, I think we're about to wrap this stream up. Any final rounds? Well, I would say rounds is kind of a bad. Sorry, it's military. But any last thoughts, questions, concerns?
Everybody, make sure you're following us on the CBSI IG. By the way, guys, myself and Brian, we are the men behind the curtain. So make sure you're following us there for weekly BOLO lists, reposted articles from comicbookinvest.com, and a lot of exclusive spec news. So definitely make sure you're following us there. It's Comic Book Invest CBSI on IG.
Right. And real quick, if you guys, like I said, if you have a YouTube channel, put it in the chat. Say I have a channel, because it's going to be on the stream. If anyone watches the stream after that, it's hey, they check your channel out, because much love to everyone, because I love the YouTube comic community. Everyone's great. It's been rolling over to Instagram. I've been finding more people on Instagram. I was slow rolling on Instagram, but and Jack says him and I are doing CBSI Instagram. Jack's been doing CBSI Instagram, so he's the one that's been slaying it. I get on there occasionally, but most of the stuff I've been selfish and doing on my own Instagram account.
Nah, you're the man.
So yeah, so Symphonic Elk, you do not have a bad channel. I enjoy channel. One thing that I've been bad about, which I've been trying to get better, is sometimes if you have a channel and you get wrapped up in your own creative process, that you don't get to watching other people's videos as much. So I've been trying to make sure that I get to other people's videos, because they're showing me love. I want to show them love back. But so I've been making sure at least a couple nights a week I sit there and watch other people's YouTube channels, because I learn from them too, man. They're picking up books that I didn't know existed, and it's fun to talk back and forth and comment on each other's channels. So with that being said, comicbookinvest.com, right, for CBSI, at Comic Book Invest CBSI for Instagram, and then of course Instagram at Simpleman's Comics. But thanks guys for coming out, and catch us on the next stream. that was a bad. We're just gonna end it right there.